All right, Chris Yonker, welcome to Front Row Dads, man. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So, dude, we were just talking about your book, Soul Intention, an executive's guide to building a life by choice, not by chance. And I was about to ask you a question, and I thought this is a perfect one to lead off with the podcast. Is why the book, right? What led you to that place to write a book? Was it pain? Was it
Yeah.
purpose? Was it all the above or
Yeah.
more?
I think what, um, for a lot of folks, I believe in paradigms, right? We run our lives based upon what our philosophy is on who we believe we are, who we believe about our roles, what we believe about life and how life is. And I think I don't think, I know what ends up happening is that there's like, tends to be three different models. There's this model of, I live in this world and I have no control and shit just happens and I'm along for the ride and and then there's a paradigm and a language that goes with that, right, in the story. Then there's the one of like, I'm king of the world. I am God. I make everything happen, and that's that. And then there's a third philosophy of like, well, there's things I can't control, but I also have choice and I have responsibility as a human being, so I can actually navigate this accordingly. And so for me, what it came down to is I saw so many people that ended up buying into their stories so much, and when we get into parenting, that's one that, boy oh boy, I mean, even that, I'll go right there, is for an illustration. We're late bloomers in the parenting realm. So our daughter's 4.5 right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm almost 50 years old. So you start talking about something, right? Like that people have experiences with, because everyone has experiences with parenting. I don't know where the hell they went to school, but I both know where that is. And everyone has rigid philosophy on what it means to be a parent, on what your life's going to look like as a parent, and things like that come up in my life. At times, it really, quite frankly, can piss me off because people project their experience on other people, and then other people buy into it, and this becomes this rapid consciousness of how things have to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I believe that if you have clarity in what your vision is and what your outcomes are, you can develop mindset and then eventually strategy to create that as a reality,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And I, as I look at my work, can I go into an illustration of that, the
For
story?
sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I had this client that I was working with. I have actually a few like this, a succession project. So we're working with a family-owned business. Someone wants to move, how that move ownership onto someone else in the family, put other people in other seats, that type of thing. And anytime you come into a family, automatically you're dealing with the dysfunction of a family. You got the business dysfunction, and then you got the family dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And I dig it because I like to get into that because it was all created over time. Like the family wasn't born that way, right? Like the philosophies in the family get programmed and conditioned in. And needless to say, I'm working with the CEO, and it constantly had challenges in relationship to getting. We would get strategy. Like, okay, here's what we're going to do, how we're going to optimize the business, how we're going to move him from his role. We made some mindset shifts, and then he'd screw it up. Like, he'd get involved, like he'd get in the weeds and he'd jack things up. And it's like, I'm like, what is going on here? So I ended up having a conversation with him, and I asked him, what, let me ask you a question. Like, what do you believe about success? Like, what has to happen for that to occur? And he said, well, you pay the price, you suffer, and then you break through. And I'm like, whoa. So you like have to like suffer to have success. And he said, yeah. I'm like, well, what if that wasn't always the case? Oh, I wouldn't know that. That's how I've always created my success. I'm like, whoa, dude, this is crazy. I'm like, okay, get it. Like, so you've created this strategy called I suffer because he also equated, the other thing he anchored is that in order for me to feel that I had that I deserved the benefit, I had to pay the price. And that whatever that pay the price is. And if I don't pay the price, then it's not, I'm not worthy of whatever it is. So I need to find a way to suffer and make this difficult. So I'll sabotage it and jack the shit up and make it complicated, even though it doesn't need to be.
Yep.
And this can be a constant pattern, because especially, for I think sometimes for guys, is like, I want to be the man. I want to lead the family. I want to, maybe sometimes I want to be the breadwinner, whatever that might be. And in order to do that, I've got to do X, Y, and Z. And it is what it is. And so what ends up happening, quite frankly, on the other side, I've had several engagements where I start coaching the CEO one-on-one. Then I start working with their executive team. And then if their kids aren't even in the business, they hire me to work with their kids. And I've done several of those. And it's really fascinating, because I'm like, this is awesome. I get to help the kid. I get to help the dad or the mom. Sometimes I'm working with all three or multiple. And I'm like in a laboratory of what I can learn about being a better parent, so I can apply this back to my own life, right? And then also I can help other people maybe that are at a different place in regards to, their kid's not 24 years old, living at home, and doing whatever, right? I'm not saying that's bad, someone's living at home, but there's certainly certain things that happened that when that parent, that CEO built their company, they created a situation where they did not set that kid up for success with the right foundation. And then so I started unlocking what those elements were. And so by the time I got ready to become a parent, the benefit for us anyway, I'm not saying like, you can become bulletproof, right? Like it's not, you're raising a human being that has their own choice, right? And so they're going to navigate accordingly anyway. But by age 7, you will program in their beliefs about themselves, the beliefs about the world, the beliefs about how things work and don't work, their values. That stuff's going to be locked down. And if you're not around because you're busy providing for the family and you're not there to help, I don't know how to freaking replace time. Yeah. And I've had people tell me like, well, just get your business to this level. And we've made conscious decisions, Jolie and I have, with our businesses in relationship to like, I'm okay. Like there's a level we want to live at and we're growing, but still I know there are times I could be doing more, consciously choose not to, because I want to wake up with my daughter every day. I take her to school every day. Some days I pick her up. So some nights when Jolie's running her business, I take Tuesday nights. She does Mondays because I teach karate on Mondays. But like, I love that, right? It's about integration. And one of the paradigms that came up with parenting is like, oh, get your sleep now. Oh, your life's over. Oh, get your travel in. You're not going to travel anymore. Oh, you're going to go out to dinner. I'm like, piss on that. We're going to go out to dinner. We're going to travel. Like right away, we integrated Grace into our lives, and she's, even today, like we go to wine bars, places you never see kids, and people can't believe. Oh, I'm like, yeah, because we set it up, intentionally that way. We wanted to integrate her into our lives. So I kind of hijacked this thing for a second there, didn't I?
You have a 4.5-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And how long have you been married?
I've been married for 23 years, 24 years in this fall. We've been together for 29.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Yeah.
That's congratulations. That's yeah. And I say that, I was used to wonder, I was like, why do people say congratulations? And it's like, well, after 10 years of being married, it's a very difficult thing. It could be a very difficult thing. In fact, I was on a walk the other day with a buddy, and we were just talking about the fact that even if we took our best friend in the world and we had to live with them 24/7, we'd probably be angry at them a lot of times. Even your best friend in the whole world, it's like, yeah, that person would probably get on my nerves. So anyway, here's why I wanted to 23 years married, 4.5-year-old daughter. You mentioned something earlier about, hey, the work you do allows you this almost like an incubator for ideas about how parenting works or doesn't work. and then it affects your life at home. What
Yeah.
strategies have you taken directly from work that you feel in your 4.5 years of being a dad have been effective? You mentioned a couple of them
Yeah.
about
Well,
values creation and things
right.
of that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did is when we decided to be parents and we knew we're going to have a kid, what we did is we created what is the ideal model of the world for our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what do we want her to believe about life, about love, about people, and we listed them out. And then also we got really clear on what's the role of a parent. And so I started studying it. I'm a huge student, as I'm sure I know you are, and probably a lot of listeners. And I realized like parenting is really about is helping aid independence in another human being, right? So we got really clear on that. So that's our job. Day in and day out, our job is to create independence. We have this timeline from 0 to 18. And as time goes on, we're engaged in trying to create more and more autonomy. So I became more conscious of where am I doing that, not doing that, right? Like, where am I not giving her enough autonomy that I should be? Because they grow so fast. You're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to wipe your rear end anymore. Like, why am I still doing it? Oh, because you're letting me. Got it.
Right.
So being aware of what's parenting is about is a good frame that we integrated. The other thing was like, what are the components that we really want to build? We want to build respect, responsibility, resilience, and compassion are the 4 tenets that we have. And I mean, I've memorized them because
Say those again, Chris.
part of our frame. So respect. We want to respect ourselves and respect others. Responsibility. I own everything. Like, if I can't accept responsibility, then I have to be a victim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, otherwise, then what's the other side of that? So that's a huge frame, right? Accept responsibility for my thinking, my actions, how I feel. My response to stuff that happens that may or may not like, right? Those are places I can accept responsibility. Resilience, dude. This is a big one right now, where I'm seeing with folks with. I mean, this is probably one of the top of the 4. This is the top one for executives, entrepreneurs, people running business. This is the one that I see that there's the biggest issue. And what happens is folks that build businesses. A lot of my clients are very successful entrepreneurs and celebrities, as well as celebrities. And what I found is they just, you're living in a different lifestyle and you have the means. So your kid basically kind of gets what you got and gets to live along the ride. And that's cool, but it's not cool because the kid never had an experience of overcoming problems because you fix them all the freaking time. Mm-hmm. And the only way that I found to create resilience in another human being is to allow them to have the experience to overcome a freaking problem.
Yeah.
And I think one question that I know the folks that are listening, they might want to write down is like, where am I solving my kids' problems that maybe, because we're guys, we like to fix shit, right? That's part of our problems in our marriages at times. Because, even Jolie and I were out the other night and she was telling me something and I'm like, I've been married as long as I have. And, I read, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, probably 15, 20 years ago. But still, I forget at times. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to fix this. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to listen. And now I'll listen. But listen, and just be engaged and listen and not try to fix stuff. And I think at times with my daughter or, with the kid, I can see the same thing for a guy, trying to do that. So I would recommend, like, hey, ask yourself, where am I, stepping in and solving a problem where, I had a client that he told me, one of his friends, who made quite a bit of money on an exit, he realized he kind of built a little bit of, non-resilience in his kids. So they went and traveled international, and he set it up. The kid to be kind of safe, but still, him and the kid went to one place, and then he wanted the kid to meet him somewhere else, and the kid kind of had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So he gave this kid this experience of traveling internationally and having to overcome obstacles and problems, and they made an adventure out of it. But think about what that kid got out of the experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough because you love your kid so much. It's hard to watch a child be in pain, so to speak. But we have to understand that if they don't have the experience of overcoming, like you and I could go on and on all day long about ourselves and people we know that had challenging, painful experiences growing up, or even in adulthood, and it sucked, but today we're thankful because it actually created some part of who we are.
Yeah.
That allows us to contribute further to the world, right? And that's
so. On that note, dude, what experience did you have as a kid that sucked, that you had to figure out how to get through?
Yeah.
That you're one of the most grateful, one experience you're extremely grateful for today.
Yeah. So I have a few. One in particular was so when you have a child, love, security, and self-esteem, as even human beings, love, security, and self-esteem are three primary human needs. Tony Robbins breaks it down to 6, but if you look at these 3 components, right? I got to love myself. I want to be secure in who I am, and own that, and own myself, but also like to secure my place in the world. So, and what I find is that love, security, and self-esteem, these 3 tenets, typically with dysfunction, that's where it comes from, right? If I don't love myself enough, then now I got to do things for you, so you'll be my friend, right? So I can feel good about myself, right? So I'm going to be extrinsically wired myself that way. And so I was wired in what my self-esteem was probably a 3, self-love probably a 3. My mom was extremely rigid. She grew up in a rigid environment also. She didn't know otherwise. She was one of 5. Her parents in World War both were enlisted for World War II. So that like militaristic kind of environment got programmed into the household. And on top of that, some of the family was not really good at just expressing love. So my mom's philosophy was like, and I'm thankful for it, but she was extremely disciplinary to a level like, I'd be outside and I hadn't closed my closet in my bedroom, and she'd scream and have me come inside to shut my closet because I wasn't in order. Okay. So what ended up happening is I really didn't believe in myself. I didn't have any frame 2 at all. I mean, if nothing else, like if you think you're special, you're not, was more of the philosophy in the household than, anything else. So I got to this point where I became a massive magnet to bullies. I mean, I was just a magnet to them. And I was an easy person to pick on. And so I got my ass beaten over and over. And it sucked, man. I was like fearful. It was like being a kid can be really freaking tough, right? And kids can be mean. Other kids can be assholes.
Yeah.
And it just,
I noticed.
Huh?
I noticed.
Yeah, you had the same experience?
Similar.
Yeah, right on. So I'm like, I had this drive, like, all right, I don't know where it came from, but maybe from God, but like, Chris, come a martial artist. At least you can like commit, like no one's going to kick your ass anymore. So I studied a couple different things, and then finally ended up
at this point.
Well, I started did something like for 10 for a stint, and then probably like around 12 for a stint, and then at 15 it took. When I was 15, and I was in high school, and that's when bowling was really get to the worst. I started studying a martial art called Sanshin-ryu karate, which is it's an Okinawan-based style founded in the United States, and so I started studying it, right? And I loved it, and I got really absorbed in it, and that caused me to create a new experience. So I eventually got to a point where now I'm in college, I got my black belt, and now I'm like, all right, like I'm wearing something that says that I can do something and accomplish something, that I'm different. I'm actually not worth shit. and I can do something about it. And I also found a coach or kind of a guy who was kind of a therapist coach in college who helped me realize some of this too, that I built a lot of lies about who I was. And so this created this transformation, and I had this new experience that, well, maybe like as soon as you start doubting what you believe, right? If you can doubt it, then you can create a new frame, because it weakens it, right? And so I had a new experience that weakened the frame, and then and that was, for me, that was a huge, like, where shit went wrong, but it created, and I would never change it as much. And I could even tell you people's names that beat my ass, you know, and probably in college time, I had a little chip on my shoulder. I even thought about going back to reunions, you know, and having conversations, and I grew out of that, fortunately. But it was, yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, man. How's your relationship? How was your relationship with your mom and dad as a kid? How is it now? You told us.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's great now, but it definitely, we were in different places, different times, and I think in college and then through my 20s and 30s, it was a bit fractured, and it got rebuilt over the last 10 years, quite a bit. Yeah, quite amazingly. Now
with both your
highlight of my day. Yeah, highlight of my day. One of my highlights of my day is I call my mom every day. They live in Michigan. Every day I call her.
Wow, man, that's cool.
No matter what. Yeah. And we don't. Sometimes we talk for half an hour. Sometimes we talk for 10 minutes. But every day. And then Grayson's here, obviously, and they're in Michigan, so we FaceTime quite a bit. The technology is so badass. I mean, it makes it so easy for a kid to have like a better personal experience. And we still get back. We have a second home in Michigan, so we still get back there a few times a year. But regardless, it helps build that bridge, right? Because you know as well as I do, grandparents aren't going to be around forever.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Yeah, that's a fact.
I started laughing inside when you said, you know, technology is so badass, like it allows us to connect, and I just had this vision of trying to Skype or FaceTime with my parents in Virginia.
Oh, really?
And they live in the country, and their internet's not fast. Every time we do it, it's a total disaster. Like,
well, dude, and this is my parents, so they're on FaceTime like this. This is how they're on FaceTime.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. They're like, "You're not in the frame, Mom." And it's like, and then they're like, you know, like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dude, it's so funny. I'm just like, just let it. I tell Jolie, let it go. Just let it go. Just let it. It's okay. They have an interaction. They can see Grayson. It is what it is, man.
So funny. My sister and I laugh because we text my mom, and we'll like copy her on stuff. So I'll send a picture to. I'll send something to my mom and my sister, and my mom will respond just to me. And my sister calls me, or she'll ask me for the reply. She's like, "Can you send me mom's reply?" Because she can't figure out how to reply to all on text. Like,
yeah, right on. Oh yeah,
can't figure it out. It's really cool, man. Tell me about your relationship with your dad. And they're still married, your mom and dad?
Yeah, oh yeah. My relationship with my dad has been from when I was a kid. So I was an only child.
Yeah.
So he was my friend. I mean, and that's kind of how it was. Like he was kind of like he wore both hats. I think there was probably times I probably could have used more of the dad role.
Yeah.
But my mom was such a heavy, hardcore disciplinarian. I think he was trying to buffer the situation quite a bit.
Yeah.
But regardless, it went. But my challenge I ran into is that, you know, obviously he was married to her. So your parents, you know, you model, like we're modeling our kids' experience of how couples get along.
Yeah. Right.
So like if we fight all the time with our spouses and yell and scream at each other, then that's a kid's philosophy of how couples love each other to a degree, because it's your first experience as a kid. We don't think about this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't, but people don't. And so there were times when my dad, we do have a great relationship, but there are times when I realized that I would like either wish that he handled my mom differently or stand up for me differently or whatever, but it is what it is. Like we all, like everyone, I think what the good thing for everyone to understand is like everyone's doing the best they can with the resources they have available.
Yeah.
And that the underlying is resources, right? Some people have a lower level of consciousness. Some people have a lower level of education. Some people have a lower level of experience. Some people are just rooted in their paradigms and aren't willing to change. Kind of is what it is. Like you can't change someone else. But I think there's a lot that I got from my parents, and on both sides of the equation, right? On the upside and on the downside, right?
Mhm. I'm making a note about this. You know, people are doing the best they can. I mean, obviously, I've heard that before. Yeah, I've heard that many times. But there's a way that you said that just hit me a little bit differently, and maybe it was like the way you articulated resources.
Yeah,
You know, because sometimes we say that statement like people are doing the best they can with what they have, and the statement's kind of left alone.
right.
But you know, I think it's important to also clarify and give a definition a little bit to like what resources we're talking about. Like when you say with what they have,
Yeah,
um, you know, and when you talk about, hey, what level of education might they have? What level of experience might they have? What was their childhood like? You know,
right.
those things, their blueprint of the world, right? What
That's
we
right.
just you don't know.
That's right.
So, Chris, I love what you said about this idea of people are doing the best they can with what they have, right? A concept that I've heard people talk about before many times. But what I appreciate about what you articulated there, which was different than at anybody else that I've heard talk about that, is that you really dialed in on the resources part, right? You know, you don't know their education, you don't know what experiences they've had in life, you don't know what their blueprint of the world would be. And when I think back on times where I've been really judgmental of people, and then I learned a little bit more about their life, I became less judgmental. I think about a conversation I just had with my wife about, you know, we were at a couples retreat, and one of the questions was, tell me something that you want me to understand, but you don't think I understand. It's a very powerful question, right? Tell me
Great one.
something. And so my wife said to me, she goes, I don't think you really understand my upbringing in life. Like, I don't know. Like, I know you knew I grew up in Russia. I grew up
Yeah,
in Siberia, in Soviet Russia, but I'm not sure you truly understand like how that impacted my life, about how I am now and today. And so I think she's right. Like, I understand high level some of the things she shared. I've been to her hometown in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia. We got married there. Like, I understand on some level, but I truly don't understand all the experiences that she had. And even though we heard about you being bullied, I don't think we truly understand that because we didn't live through it. So there has to be a little bit of, you know, trusting that people are doing the best they can with what they have, because that's the decision they've made. It's like, you know, that you have to believe that, right?
right.
And you mentioned Tony Robbins earlier. I did a lot of Tony events, and Tony talks about, you know, look, people want power. They have to just go. We all want power, right? Kids want power. A lot of us go after it in different ways, some in healthier ways than others, we would argue. So, you know, I think that's a really good thing to contemplate. Chris, let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about, you know, as a coach, would you consider yourself a coach? Like if I say that, like an
Uh,
executive coach,
yeah,
or?
that's a you know I'll wear that hat. I'll wear the hat of a life coach. I'll wear the hat of an executive coach. I'll wear the hat as a consultant because I get into strategy and business operations, and we have people on our team that you know line up on that. So, but yeah, I help people solve problems in transition. Basically, you know, typically come to me when they're facing some type of transition in their lives, personally and or professionally.
So speak to that concept a little bit then. Like when it comes to solving problems, you know, there's actually, I see a theme emerging here of the show. You talked about it earlier with kids, right? Like allowing them to solve their own problems. You help people solve problems.
Yeah,
I would imagine that like questions, you
right,
asking them and you helping people craft questions is a
right.
good way to solve problems.
Yeah. So think about it this way: if I'm stuck somewhere, then that means I want an outcome I don't got.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be stuck, right? And you know from your experience with Tony, because he's an NLP guy and I'm an NLP guy. In fact, I trained with someone that trained him when he was building personal power. Um,
Who's that?
Wyatt Woodsmall, he worked
Okay.
with Bandler and the guys that founded NLP.
Yeah.
Um, so you'll find people are moving either away, right, away, pleasure, pain, right? There's two different levels of motivation, right? So I want outcomes, right? and sometimes people want outcomes. I had someone come to me recently who's a celebrity who's created an amazing lifestyle, right? And hates their life. And we got into like, why are you doing this? Like, what's this about? And it came there. It's interesting when you, especially when you, sometimes some of these people operate with a different name, and you know, that the public name and the other name and whatnot. But it's like sometimes our identity shifts off of that, right? So who am I? And the reason I bring that up is because even as a father, we have a role too. So if you think, what's the process, is what you're asking, what's the process? The process is I got to get clarity in what I want and what I don't want, but at a core level that's tied to my truth, not tied, because potentially sometimes what we think we want, we really don't freaking want it. But we've programmed ourselves to believe that we want it based upon what other people think, right?
Correct.
Number one thing that people end up on their deathbed saying that, like, I wish I'd made more decisions to honor my own truth and what I wanted instead of worrying about what other people think or how they would respond to what I wanted. Yeah. Right? So like if that's the number one people's thing that's been documented in people's deathbed that they've said in regards to regrets, it's probably good to pay attention to. So we get clarity in what we want. Vision is the number one thing first, right? Like you got to get clear on what you want and what your values are. Then we have to, I mean, here's the key, John, we have to become the person to create the outcome. We have to become the person. So when I'm working with someone, I'm like, hey, if you're working with me, then you're signing up for change and transformation. I know a lot of people use those terms, but I like, you're going to become not me. And that's the only way we can get you there, because who you've been up till now has been your problem. Not all the way around, but part of you for sure. And then so that's tied into two areas. It's the mindset side. I got to rewire my philosophy. And then I've got to apply strategy to that. But they have to work together. And what I find a lot of times, the coach is like, well, why didn't you do it? Well, I'll be your accountability guy. Like, come on, give me a freaking break. So like, to me, it's like, I got the emergency brake on and I'm driving the car and we just got to push through it. Just drive harder. It's like, take the damn brake off. Let's find out where the resistance is and remove the freaking resistance. Then it just comes in naturally, you know? And I think that's the sense of order. I like to work on like, hey, let's find a way not to have to break through something. Let's create a higher level of power by allowing it to happen, to become the person to generate the outcome, and become the person where, like, you know, hey, I mean, some people are like, well, how can you drink so much water? I mean, I drink 5 liters of water a day. I've wired myself to be the person to drink the water. Well, you know, how do you eat so clean most of the time? I've wired myself to do that. It was intentional. Those are strategies. But my belief though is that I am, you know, I'm an athletic person. I still study karate. I mean, 30 something years now. Like, I want my body, like, going into my 50s, I want to have the best shape of my goals to be the best shape of my life. Yeah. Right. These are philosophies, right? I can apply the strategies, but I better own the philosophy first. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I find that not all folks, but a lot of folks, they don't create permanent behavior change because they don't become the person to generate the outcome. Yep. Well, that's not who I am. Well, that's bullshit. You decided you're that person a long time ago, and that's your freaking problem. You're blocked in that paradigm. Yeah. I used to be a person who didn't smile. I used to be a person who wouldn't talk to strangers because I didn't love and believe in myself. So of course I didn't act that way. So I'm totally different than I was in 20 years, 30 years ago. People wouldn't even believe, you know, wouldn't even realize. I might look the same, but I'm not the same person. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, it's great. I'm just looking at the clock and then thinking of the 7 questions I want to ask.
Yeah, I get it.
To follow up on that. How about some questions that men should be asking themselves, fathers should be asking themselves right now?
Okay, I think that's great. So I think a couple things to think about. One is, what's your belief or frame about what it means to be a dad? What's your belief or frame in regards to what it means to be a husband? A good exercise might be to sit down and figure out, what are your top 3 or 4 values? What's your spouse's top 3 or 4 values? What's your vision for yourself personally? What's your wife's, like, I love that you guys went to a retreat. What's your wife's vision for herself personally? What are her values? Where are we aligned? Where are we misaligned? What, you know, I have a personal vision statement, family vision statement, business vision statement. And there's alignment there, right? And so I navigate and make choices consciously based upon, is this aligned with the vision we want or not? Does it make sense to do this? If the answer is no, then don't freaking do it. It should be a guidepost of, like, and so I think sometimes we end up chasing things or doing things out of fear or response. But as a parent, I think the other thing I'd ask is, like, how conscious, like, if you say you value your time with your family, which a lot of guys will say, then what I'll typically do is I'll have them do an audit. So what I want to do is I want to go back in your calendar, look at the last 90 days, and I want to know exactly how much time you spent with your family. I want to know how much, also where you're investing your money. Because, like, your time and your money are the things that we have to invest. We should be investing in correlation to what we say we value. A lot of people don't. Why not? I don't know. I do know they've created a situation where they don't do that. And then, are you present? I think the last question I ask is, how often are you present? When I'm working with folks, I get them out of, like, especially business owners, we're always thinking about ahead, the vision, where we're going, the strategy, the excitement of what's happening, our minds in the future. And then sometimes we're thinking about the past, what happened, what occurred, what do we learn from, what could we do? And the past should not be a storehouse for pain, by the way. But it's a place where we learn things, remember. But the point is, like, the future and past don't exist, but we spend so much freaking time there. And when we're looking to engage with a child, we're looking to engage with our, spouse, take your freaking phone and get it the frick out of there. It doesn't belong. And you should, and I think I suggest, hey, get family dinners together. In our charter, it's 5 nights a week minimum. Family dinner, no electronics, sitting there and interacting and having conversations.
Yeah. Right?
Not texting each other. Because our connection with one another is very important. And the love, self-esteem, all these things that we're programming, I don't know a way to replace time with a child that's consciously present, right? That you're in the moment, you're here now, be here now. Maybe a mantra for a dad. Right. Be here now. If you could be here now more often with your wife, be here now more often with your child, how much more connected could you be?
Yeah. What do you think? I know we're coming up on the clock here, so this is a big question that maybe requires a shorter answer. But when you think about the thing that is the most challenging part of being here now, you talked about phones, because I could imagine a guy saying, "Yeah, that sounds great, Chris, but, like, that's way harder. That's way harder to execute." Like, I could see myself saying, "Yep, I got it. Be here now, be present," and then just get totally wrapped up. Right?
Yeah. So the quick answer to that is, I get my private clients, all my clients I'm working directly with. I don't make them do this, but I'm a huge advocate on getting them to meditate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's like a mind gym. If I go to the gym, like, you're not going to argue with me on doing endurance and doing cardio and strength training, right? Flexibility, pliability. You're fitness. You get it, right? Like, those are important things. What the hell do you do for your mind? Right. Who taught you how to run your mind? The minds are like constant, ongoing chatterboxes, creating fear and doubt and worry and craziness. And we spend way too much time in them. Yep. You got to get out of our head and if you want to connect further, get out of your head. Get out of your head. How do I do that? If nothing else, you said people just, okay, what do I do about that? Go get an app. That's what you do about that. Headspace is a great one. Calm is also pretty good. Just get a headspace. Just start somewhere. Yep.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to join me, September 10th or 11th, I'm doing a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
There you go.
Vipassana.
I know Vipassana. Oh, yeah. Yep. Very familiar.
Our dads have gone through it, our members, and rave about it. I said to somebody, "Oh, that sounds like so much fun." They go, "That's not the word I would use to describe it."
It's amazing.
Life-changing, yes. But yeah.
Very cool, man.
Awesome, man. Hey, a couple things. One, if guys want to connect beyond this point, where can they find you?
They can go ahead and my website is www.chrisyonker.com. My name, ChrisYonker, or you can, if you wanted to email me, chris@chrisyonker.com is another way to get a hold of me directly. And yeah, thank you.
That's awesome, man. We mentioned it earlier too. You've got a book on Amazon. What?
I do. Yeah, it's called Soul Intention. It's on Amazon. So yeah, and I wrote the book. It says on it on the cover, no fluff, to be read in under 60 minutes, or 90 minutes is what it says. But some folks, you know, so I wrote it because, like, you know, when I was writing the book, I'm like, hey, you know, the biggest challenge I have with books is like getting through the damn things.
Yeah.
So I've tried to boil it down and make it as succinct as possible.
Well, one of my favorite books for dads is The Family Board Meeting by Jim Shields.
Okay.
And that is like the tiniest of tiny books.
There you go.
Biggest of biggest impact. So tiny books, man, they can be the best kind. So
yeah, right on.
Thank you for writing a quick read. And Chris, is there anything that needs to be said that's been left unsaid so far?
Great question. I would just suggest to the dads out there to love more and think less.
That's great. It's a great way to wrap up. Love more, think less. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate this. Wonderful to spend some time with you. Look forward to following your work and your impact in the world. And thanks for opening up and sharing your personal and professional life with us. I know that we can be better men as a result of this conversation. So thank you, man.
Thanks, John.